All right, I will call to order this meeting of the Northfield Finance Committee for March 15th, 2021. And I'll read the governor's ruling why we're meeting this way through Zoom. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Northfield Finance Committee will be conducted by a remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Record of the proceedings will be posted on the Town of Northfield website as soon as possible after the meeting. So before we get into the further into the agenda, I have a couple of things that I'd like to bring up. We talked from last week. We talked about the police law now that's talking about part-time. There will be no part-time academy. Anybody would have to go to the full-time academy. And when was the meeting you're going to, Andrea? Have you had it yet?
No, I have several sort of webinars coming up on that, and I think there's one. I think the first one I have is actually on the 25th.
Okay. What I've done is, I'm a member of the County Select Board Association, and I've got a meeting notice here, but it says that Finance Committee members can be invited, and this will be Thursday, March 25th at 6 o'clock. And again, it'll be the same format that we're using here now. And the topic is the 2020 Police Reform Legislation, also known as an act relative to justice, equity, and accountability in law enforcement in the Commonwealth. And so the County Select Board Association has not had meetings for a while, but they used to always have a quarterly meeting. But their speakers for this one will be Brian Keyes, Chief, Chelsea Police Department, President, Mass Major City Chiefs of Police, Mark Leahy, Executive Director, Mass Chiefs of Police Association, former Captain, Connecticut State Police, and former Chief, North Bureau, Mass Police Department, Ed Dunn, Chief, Falmouth Police Department, President, Mass Police Chiefs Association, and John Patoric, the Chief in Deerfield Police Department. And the County Select Board Association President will moderate, and that's Jonathan Edwards completely. So if anybody's interested, I can send you the information. It would be like the invitation that we get for this tonight. So I'm going to be in on it. I think we need to learn all we can, and Andrea's going to participate in her meetings.
An MMA one, Mass Municipal Management Association, has one at 10 a.m. on the 25th.
Okay, all right. And also last week, the question came up about the legality of our enterprise funds, and I seem to...
I'm not sure it's not legal. I wouldn't say it's the legality of it. You're not doing anything illegal. It's just...
No. Well, we're all set because we have voted it. I seem to remember something about it, so I look back, and here's this on enterprise funds, and it's General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half, and it's enabling legislation, that if towns adopt the enabling legislation, then you can set up the enterprise funds. And Northfield did that. 2010 town meeting adopted it and it set up the EMS Enterprise Fund, and the following year, 2011, set up the Sewer Department Enterprise Fund. So we're all set and whatever was needed to do it. So, okay. Another item that was mentioned, and I think maybe left some question for some of you. I checked it out. free cash, as I understand it, needs to be used in this fiscal year. Otherwise, it rolls over to free cash for the next fiscal year. It isn't something you can hold and say, well, now in December something might come up that we want to spend it for. So that the Division of Local Services information on that.
Yeah, on July 1st, you have to start the process to recertify. So whatever you don't spend, I don't know that it rolls over, it just either gets recertified or impacts, you start all over again. You draw a line in the bottom of the checkbook and you rebalance.
It gets included in what's certified for the...
Well, it just gets not spent, so it'll show up on the balance sheet.
Yeah, okay. I don't think I need to mention this tonight, but I will at some point in the future here that our authority is set by law as to why we're doing what we're doing. Finance committee's responsibilities, I should say. Okay, how about the minutes? Sent the minutes out to you, this is what, last day or so, I believe.
They look good to me. I move we approve the minutes of March 8th.
I will second that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Tony, was you? Go ahead. Who's gonna?
I second that.
Okay.
Okay, motion has been made by Jack and seconded by Tony to approve the March 8th minutes as presented. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous then, thank you. Okay. Andrea has done a lot of work and put together a booklet for us with suggestions on the funding and on the articles, and in fact said we've approved some of them.
Those are just placekeepers. I
know.
I change them to whatever you vote in the end.
I know.
I copy and paste the articles. So.
Okay, that's good. So what we're going to be talking about and from to now is this draft, and she emphasizes it's a draft, and that's fine. So I'm going to go through pages, but if there's anything I skip that somebody wants brought up, be sure and speak up. Don't hesitate at all. There's a page there that I have to write something after we make our recommendations. Andrea, unfortunately, Northfield has a lot of roads that are called Old Turnpike Road, Old Wendell Road. So here in the index, it just says Wendell Road.
Oh, does it?
It should be
say
Old.
I'd like to know where New Wendell Road is.
There isn't one.
See, there you go.
No.
But you could make it lower end of road, upper and full.
Although I think they've never been disconnected through the middle. That's probably why they haven't been.
That's it. Yeah, they haven't.
So they are technically the same road, even though they don't connect.
Yeah, and they're just called Old Wendell Road on either end, and it's difficult.
Very confusing, yes.
I don't know how the post office handles it. But anyway, and then you probably would finish up the page numbers after you see.
Yeah, things could move around yet, so I just...
They could have.
This allows me not to make a mistake, because then I have to put it.
Sure, that's okay, no problem. I want you people to take note where it says some of these things that we haven't discussed to any extent, but she has to put down whether we recommend them.
Yeah,
if you don't like it, say so now, because I looked at them and I didn't catch anything that I had a problem with, but
discussed the school budget at all?
No, we haven't gotten to that yet, Jack.
Okay, so the omnibus is still up in,
Right.
okay.
Well, I can tell you about the school budget right now. I mean, last week there was budget subcommittee meeting on Tuesday night, and on Thursday night was a full school committee meeting. And of course, some of it you've seen in the paper, they've changed, and they're not going to move the 6th grade over to Pioneer this fall. It's put off for a year. But there were budget changes to go along with moving the 6th grade. It didn't cancel out all those budget changes. They're still holding on to some of the budget increases. And so now they've got to go back, and there was a complaint filed against the open meeting law about the way they handled the public hearing on it. They've got to have another hearing, and I think it's probably this week. I didn't check this afternoon to see what's posted. It may be on. I don't know. So they have got to vote the budget again. But so Andrea used the figures, rightfully so, whatever she had at the time, and that's showing what, an increase of 220,000 or something like that. It may go up even more. I was in on both of them. I had trouble accessing, not their problem. Somehow I did. They were trying to help me. Even during one of the meetings, I called the superintendent and said I can't get on, and he had his tech person call me. They've been very helpful trying to let me access it, and they always have their citizens' comments at the beginning, and I missed that, and he got me to speak afterward. The one thing I objected to is that their finance director send out something to the school committee members, and somebody shared it with me, and it said it was telling of the town's ability to pay their assessment, and it's public information she could gather from the state websites and so forth, but she used whether you had debt or not and what your stabilization funds were. That's it. And so I spoke briefly against that, saying that I didn't think that gave the whole picture. Certainly didn't. I said, while it shows that we may not have debt or anything, I said, but we're facing needing a new truck and a new bucket loader, backhoe, and that sort of thing. So, it wasn't anything debatable. It was just I wanted to give some information, and Bernardston has objected to some of the comments made. So that's the best I can tell you, Jack. We don't know yet, but it'll be a substantial increase for us. Now, part of it is because last year they set a budget and set the assessments, and then with COVID, I don't know, along June, somewhere along there, they made some changes in the assessments due to savings on busing, that sort of thing. So they're saying that, okay, while it looks like a higher percentage increase, higher than 2.5 or whatever, if you go back to what it would have been without COVID, it's not so much of an increase. Whatever. Okay.
But the number for fiscal year 2021, what they requested, and the difference, the increase, the 4.8% increase is from what they requested last year to what they're requesting this year.
It's from that reduced amount.
So
the percentage increase is from the reduced amount. But I think there have been changes even this past few days
fiscal, the line item on the omnibus budget spreadsheet for 4.48 million is not what they requested last year, it's what they spent. Is that correct? Or what they're gonna spend this year?
Wait a minute, oh, the 4 million,
Yeah, so the appropriation we approved last year was $4,448,500.
right,
Okay? And then you look what they're requesting this year, and it's a 4.8% increase.
right.
Now,
We
that's
didn't change-
the 4.8% increase is based on our appropriations, not on what they've spent.
Yeah, you're right, you're right.
Now, I also want to say, in the past year, their enrollments declined 10%.
Yeah,
And a 4.8% increase, to me, we should get an explanation for that.
They've got a lot of information that they're sending out, but it's not that clear cut. And now the Bernardston selectmen have sent some questions to them, one of the selectmen anyway, and they've got some good questions asking, because one thing, for example, is dean of students. They've had a dean of students. Then with the 6th grade going over, they were going to change it to assistant principal with a substantial raise in pay. Now they say, okay, they'll keep it at dean of students. But I don't know what's happening with the pay and that sort of thing. So some of those, they need to make some explanations. I think it'd be a good idea if you people could get on when they talk about it here, whenever they have this public hearing on it, talk about it, and before they'll be voting, as soon as they have the public hearing. I think that it might be the same night, I'm not sure, but yes, you're right, Jack, because I asked about that, and that's what she told me about changing the amount, and I know we didn't go back and we didn't have another town meeting and reduce what we had put in, but so
Well, you didn't vote your budget till the end of June last year. They gave you a pretty firm number. I mean, if they cut it, then I don't think anybody went back and voted a lower number. I don't recall them ever giving us a number to go back and vote lower.
I don't think so. No.
We didn't.
We had a pretty good number from them because we put our town meeting off till almost July 1st. We had the most recent number they had done. I think they changed it from the request they had originally made in the spring, but you guys used that request of the newer number because it was the end of June before you had town meeting.
That's right, good point. And so I had written and asked her about it, and that's what she said the difference was, because the increase was from the original figure. Well, that doesn't fit, does it?
No.
So what we got, so that's the best I can say for now, Jack, and I think we need to watch this carefully, because you've got Leiden has closed, Warwick is trying to negotiate something about keeping their high school students coming here and not having their elementary students come, and Bernardston's finding it difficult to come up with this. It's probably not going to result in an override for them, but it's getting close. Now, if anybody else pulls out, then what?
Yeah, it's a $175,000 increase to Bernardston. At least the same numbers you have.
Okay. Okay, so I think we've got to watch this carefully. Like you say, enrollment is dropping. There is a committee studying a merger with Gil Montague, but I don't know when the results will come out of that. I don't think it's anything for next year by any means. And so I think we've got to watch carefully how much it's going to cost us to keep that school going. Your cat wants to be in. So,
Andrea, be careful, there's something behind you.
I know, he's a little monster. He likes to climb on the back of things. He's very strange that way.
so that's
ignoring him, hopefully he'll go.
what I can tell you for now then, Jack, so. But you're right, Andrea can't finalize the omnibus until we get that figure. So.
And the same is true with the revenue. You know, I'm using the governor's figure because we don't have anything from the state, so. And just so you know, I mean, if you're looking at the big budget sheet, you get the budget summary sheet. I didn't bother to paste it into this yet because it's obviously going to change, but it is in the material I sent you, that budget summary sheet. I was very conservative with revenues, so, you know.
Andrea, I had a question regarding your budget sheet. It looks like the valuation in town went up over 30 million, which is 6%.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Well, you have to look at the breakdown. Probably Beth's the better person to answer this, but if you look at the backup data, there's a calculation that does the whole thing, and out of the cash calculation. Cherry sheet revenue. So, I go to the tax recap sheet. Is last year? Of course it's last year. Why do I have fiscal 21 written in here? Is this still show? Oh, 691, is that the new number? No, that's the old budget. So I have to pull up, let me make sure, I just want to make sure I'm using the same numbers. It went to 517 from 482. Yeah, it went to 517 from 482. So that comes on the tax recap sheet that the assessors do.
That results from an increase of $35 million full and fair cash value.
That's right, the valuation of the town.
Was that a result of new construction or new work or just up?
Well, a couple things. We haven't gotten in there the new construction. That all comes under new growth, most of that. But I mean, this obviously gets factored in from last year's new growth, now the new values. But it also has to do with, you know, what they determine values are. I mean, like I said, Beth can probably explain it better. But values go up because they deem that real estate is more valuable. Sometimes that has to do with sale prices going up. Sometimes that has to do with construction of new properties. But when they do a full reval, it can be any number of things. But in my experience, it's because based on the valuation has gone up. In other words, housings that was worth $250,000, now that market is selling at $270,000. So everything in that range goes up in value. So the valuation of your town goes up and down based on that process. And there's a sheet. Of course, I have last year's stuff.
I don't have stuff in front of me, Jack, so I'm a little not prepared. But we did have.
But you did a full value.
Well, my question, Beth, maybe for you, to put some context. For example, when the Northfield campus became taxable, I think that was around a $40 million boost to the fair and cash value in town, plus or minus, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the Eversource work, I think that was a boost of 70 to 80 million, plus or minus, to the full and cash value. So 30 million boost. I was wondering if there was another project in town.
No,
that-
I'm looking at the LA 19. Would that be it shows residential property going up. It shows residential property.
Yeah, we did have an increase in value, was it?
Okay, well
Went from
that,
But I also wanna say
482 to 502 just on residential.
Yes, definitely the residential, but I just wanted to touch on the Lane property. When that sold, the new entity was, because of the sale of that property happened late in the year, they didn't get to turn in all their manufacturer corporation paperwork. So we were able to get all of their personal property, which is quite significant. And so we were able to get that for 2 years, just because they weren't prepared again the second year to turn in their information again. So we were able to gain that as new growth for a couple years. I don't know for 22. I think they're working on cutting back and getting the right paperwork done.
Right, but you will have, at some point, we will have some different new growth, which won't show in this, but will be incorporated next year. And then we are doing we're doing a reval of the power company.
Yes,
Which will show
yeah.
us in a year or
This
so.
fiscal 22
Right.
will be the new assessment for Western
First
Mass Electric and First Light.
First Light. So next year, you'll see another set of numbers. That will take a change.
one final question. You've answered my previous question. The Eversource work, does that get depreciated over time?
It does, but part of the reason why the assessor's budget went up was because the state is now making the towns do actual appraisals for all the 504 companies, which is what Western Mass Electric is. So it costs more, obviously, because we have to have someone spend more time doing that, but the hope is for towns to actually get more of a fair value, because the companies are what report those figures, and they depreciate rather rapidly, and not quite a fair assessment to the town. So what the hope is, the company will report their figures, we do an appraisal, and we're supposed to meet somewhere in the middle. So it should be, if anything, a gain for the town.
Will that work ever depreciate to zero, or does it just have small depreciation?
Something always has to have a value. If you ask the entity, they'll say that things do have a zero value, but that's one of the big arguments, is there should never be anything with a zero value.
Okay, I agree. Thank you.
Unless it's in the dumpster, and then maybe you can make that argument.
Okay, Jack, I had that letter from Tanya when I wrote and asked early on about changes, and I'll try to find that. Maybe I can pick her up on that. So, okay, I'll continue on here we're on page 12. Andrea, the select board wage is part-time. That's where we left that secretarial help in there, the whole thing, that's fine. And that's why there's if somebody looks at the Concom expense, they asked for a high figure and we didn't give it, and that was because of that secretarial thing. Okay, I noticed, and this is the way I would like to see this continue, the building maintenance wages are here.
I think that's gonna come back, though. I think the highway super is not completely happy with that. I think that's something you're gonna have to put on your agenda with the select board,
Okay,
so that somebody once and for all makes the decision where they want that to go.
okay,
And that may be the select board saying, no, we're moving it all to highway. They haven't had that discussion, so I haven't heard anything from them yet.
all right, I'll make a note of it.
And there's some extra money in the phone bill there. Because I know he put in extra for Tel, and I didn't drop it, so one or the other of us has to give him.
Okay,
There will be a change in the, slight change at some point in the town hall thing there, because I'll take that phone bill down. I won't need that phone bill.
Okay. And then, of course, on page 13 is PBRS. Was it, I want to make sure that everybody is in agreement. There's an article here for the radios. I think we've got fire department and EMS. Was it the intent that you want to be, this is having taxpayer money pay for the radios for the EMS. I want to be sure everybody's in agreement that that's it, rather than coming out of their enterprise fund.
Well, I agree. Jack agrees.
I agree. Dan Campbell agrees.
That it come out of taxation rather than the enterprise.
Yeah, Bernie agreed also.
Okay.
I agree.
Wanted to be sure everybody was aware of that. Okay. I just want to make sure everybody understands. When we talked about the wages on the sewer department, as long as it was tied to the equivalent of step increases, we approved it. We did not go into anything about retroactive, though, and I think they want to do something about retroactive wages, but in other words, all I'm saying is we did not endorse that part of it at all, right?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This one is new to us. Article 8 on page 17. Andrea may want to explain this a little bit.
Talking about the tax title revolving?
Yes. You want
Right.
finance
So-
committee support on that.
Right, and that would, I haven't had that discussion with her, but there is a tax title budget. We have to kind of leave in, because if the article doesn't pass, she has to have a budget. But ultimately, the idea is she has years where she doesn't do a lot, but then she has years where there's a lot of activity. And so what's happening is some years she doesn't use all the budget, but then some years she is going to exceed her budget. And this is basically the tax title accounts. When she puts things into tax title and she has to pay the attorneys, you have to pay for publication costs, you have to pay for mailing. There's a whole process in order to go through tax title, which is basically preserving the town's interest in taxes, back taxes that haven't been paid, that ultimately end up filed in court so that you have a lien on a property for back taxes. So they move their way through the system kind of at their own pace. So it's very hard for her to create a budget. So what some towns have done, and she's recommending, is that we create a tax title account, whereupon the money she gains from certain payments would go in, but only up to a certain point, but then money that she has to pay out would then come from that account. But you max that account so that it can't build up for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in other words, if somebody then sells a house and that tax lien gets paid off, the money would go into that account. But it can only go in every year up to the appropriated amount that you give it. And then anything. So for example, if 1 year it's very active and she gets $18,000 in tax title payments, not likely, she's capped at the amount that you put in the budget, and the rest goes back into the general fund. But if she expends 10 and you've only given her 5, she's in trouble. So we're trying to find a way to make that account sort of self-funding to a limit, and allow her to continue to proceed. I haven't checked with her on that 15,000 cap, might be 10, but I want her to give me a sense of what she thinks is the busiest year, and whether that needs to be that high. So the money that comes in is when people pay off those liens in a closing.
Okay. I think we should be taking a stand on it, and it's involving a money account being set up. So
then we would be able to remove it from the tax, from the account that it's in right now in the omnibus, which is still in there because I can't not fund it on the chance
Yeah,
that it doesn't pass.
sure.
Then next year, if it passes, that article, that line won't be funded.
Oh, yeah. How do you feel about it, the other members?
This is Bernie, I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I think it just establishes a place where you can, put money in as far as that, but you need this in order to do that. So, I think it's a vehicle of being able to help hold money. Is that what it's for?
It's to basically stabilize, because from year to year, you don't know what this amount's gonna be. It's not something she can easily budget. And therefore, you know, like I said, if she does a lot of work one year and a lot of liens have to be levied, and it goes through, she has to go to the lawyer multiple times, she can exceed her budget. Well, we absolutely have to have those levies placed. It preserves the town has to do that. So other years, it might be a slow year. She doesn't have a lot of tax liens to file. So what we're trying to do is give her the ability to do some fluctuation year to year with a cap. But we're not saying you can build up $100,000 in the tax title account that is being returned to the town. But if you go up one year, that's fine. If you go down one year, but we don't think that on the tax rate.
So if
We
we
try
don't
to guess
have,
it every year.
okay, so if we don't have this, language, if we don't have this, what's the downside?
Well, the downside is that she runs into problems with the budget because you're giving her an annual budget for a tax title amount.
So she
Flat
couldn't
amount.
spend her so she couldn't spend her budget because she doesn't have a crystal ball. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, and she could be very active one year and want to place more liens, but her budget is constrained.
I understand what it is. And I agree with it.
So Bernie, did you make that a motion that we recommended?
I make a motion that we recommend that, creation of the, tax title revolving fund.
Dan Campbell seconds that.
Okay, motion has been made and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Dan Campbell says aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Bernie?
Aye.
And I say aye. So it's unanimous vote on that, okay?
Follow-up question. This
Yes.
is up the count, but it's not being funded this year? There's no money going in it?
You're not setting up a balance in it, no, unless we want, well, the next article gives you the max. So she still has a budget in this year's warrant. Get my cursor to go to the other screen. So right now, no. We could put money in to start the account. I have not done so. But I haven't asked her what she thinks would appropriate be. So the tax title right now would only be what she recovers to 15,000, but leave in place the current budget. So it's very possible that she might say, could you put some money in it? But right now, what you put in it would just be an appropriation until she makes the collections. Because you already have in your budget her appropriation for this year.
Should we go back and increase that, her budget?
Let me ask her what she thinks.
Okay, it's a good point, Jack.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about seeding the account, but maybe that's what we should.
Yeah, we put it on the books and wouldn't be using it for another year, maybe, that way.
Well, anything she gets once you create it would go in there, but you still have to be paying out, which she has a budget for, but the
Yeah.
question is, do we want to do that all in 1 year?
Okay, so we'll hold till you check on that then.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that would
and,
be Article 9, or Article 8, if we're going to amend it, I'll bring it back to you. If we're going to recommend
yeah,
it.
8. Okay, now next is Article 9. It's something that just has to be done every year on the revolving funds. It's setting a limit that can be spent. And we need to make our recommendation, and I just want to see that we're endorsing that. Anybody have a problem with it?
Dan Campbell has no problem.
Bernie Parada has no problem. Tony, no problem.
Looks good to check.
Sue, no problem.
Okay, unanimous, we're all set on that.
we agreed for the radios on the EMS, this would be a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
We can-
Now we're getting into the articles, and of course, Andrea has given us a suggestion here on this, but I think all of this now is articles. So there's one thing to say we are recommending the purchase on some of these things, and secondly, where it comes from, where the money comes from. So let's go through and see what we've got that we want to fund, and then how we'd fund it would be putting them all together. So this is the radios we've got here.
Free
for fire
cash.
department. Yeah. And then we've got a truck for the highway department. That is Article 12. Let's not worry about the funding, because we want to put the funding all together and see how we come out with it.
Oh, and
Cash.
Lois, I just sent you that new request, so that's another one that isn't even in here yet.
Oh, the boiler?
Yeah,
Just
we knew that was
today.
coming.
Yes, yeah, I saw that. So
And I did talk to Tom about it, so when you want to speak about it, let me know.
we've got three things then for the highway department. Is he looking for another bid on that? Is that it? Is he got?
The request he's putting in is the most he thinks it will be. He's got a quote right now on doing the boiler the way it is now, a wood boiler, which would be lower than the 40. But he's waiting for the propane bid. He's had two guys that he's been trying to get in. The local guy has blown him off like twice, but he has another guy coming out this week, I think he said. He thinks the propane bid will be closer to the 40. He doesn't know that it'll be 40, but he wanted to give you what he suspects the max would be. It would be less than the 40, but he doesn't know which way it's going to go. So he thinks 40 is the most it will be, no matter what gets chosen. So, because I said,
Okay.
is that the max you're asking for? No hands down. He said yes.
And the thing is, if he goes propane, then there's going to be an additional cost for propane for it.
Right, but
Whereas
he thinks
wood-
that'll go in for the 40
Yeah.
to do the retrofit.
Okay. Well, I guess that other stove there, whatever they call it, furnace or stove, 10 years old. So, and it's not efficient anymore.
It's burnt through. It's got holes. They've been patching.
It looks to me like we need to replace it. I think I don't know that that's debatable even. It sounds like we need to. The question is, what's the best deal? And that's something you're working with him on.
Right,
So-
and then it will be cheaper to replace the system in kind with the wood. However, the Energy Committee will probably have their heads explode. If he does that, that is not a energy efficient use. It's a big chunk of their BTUs that they're fighting for in the Green Communities program. So he has been asked to price the new, the propane system. So that's what he's trying to do, so he can get some
Okay.
comparison.
It's a good way of getting rid of wood, though, when they do brush cutting and that sort of thing. How do the rest of you feel about it?
I personally, I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, it's a necessity for something out there as far as doing that. And if he gets prices on all of them, then I think it would be up to probably the select board to choose what it is, and we would agree on a price if it was reasonable.
Yeah, some of these things I'm thinking about. I think town meeting is, 7 weeks from tonight? How long do you think he's trying to get the figures?
Well, I told him the warrant closes on the 22nd, so he needs to have this to me by Monday. He needs to give me
Okay.
something. But I think he's gonna ask for this 40,000. I think that's his number.
Okay, all right.
He'll give you the information behind it, but that I think is gonna be his request.
However, then whether it's wood or propane isn't another cost if it's propane.
Well, I think he's saying that he thinks that'll cover the propane. What it'll be is cheaper if he sticks with
Okay,
the wood.
all right. All right. Let's, if I'm being consistent here, we would say we would vote to approve the purchase of it, and then we'll talk about how to fund it. Anybody want to make a motion that we support the purchase?
Dan Campbell makes a motion to support the purchase of a boiler for the town garage.
Second?
Jack,
Sorry, go ahead, Jack.
Jack second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Campbell says yes.
Any- Anybody opposed? Okay, unanimous.
There you go. Do that.
Then a truck.
This is the infamous hook truck. It's supposed to be able to use virtual with other equipment. It's going to replace one,
That's
two,
the description.
three trucks.
Yeah, that's the description of the thing, so obviously you just speak to it.
It's an expensive vehicle here. Talking about 270,000.
You need it. I mean,
Okay.
it's part of his capital plan, as I understand it, Andrea. Is that correct?
Well, it looks like he's getting rid of some vehicles to do it. So it's not so much, I mean, it is on his plan to get rid of an international dump truck, 2012. And I think he's dropping the Ford 450, a 2007. So might it have been more expensive to buy this truck than just replace one, but maybe not for both. But they are on the plan. He's just choosing to do it this way as opposed to buy two trucks, I guess. I guess if he would be replacing two trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying that he's going to replace the 2007 and the 2012 with this one truck.
So does it sound like something we want to support?
I would support it.
Okay?
I'll support it. Dan Campbell supports it.
Okay, that was a motion, Jack, that we support it, wasn't it?
I move we support the truck requested by the highway department.
Dan Campbell seconds that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous on that. Then we'll get to the funding. All right, okay, now, is, this one is about engineering, drainage, and road improvements on Old Wendell Road. And as I understand it, that's the connecting part, that when he was in and talked to us about it,
You have a loader. Are you going in order? Article
We missed
15?
we missed the load.
Nick Loader for 200,000.
what did you miss that?
Article 13?
Sorry, okay, you're right. How are we gonna support that? Now, apparently he has two, and this is replacing one of them.
Well, actually, I think he's replacing a backhoe with a loader.
Oh, okay.
That seems to be my understanding.
I think
And
that's
he
what he
had
said.
two backhoes and was gonna get rid of one of them. I've got the,
He has an old loader, but I think that that's where my notes are. I think he wants to purchase a new loader and keep the old loader and ditch a backhoe.
okay, I've got notes somewhere there.
Yeah, that seems to be what he's saying. So that's why I didn't say in the notes that he was replacing it. I said that the current loader is 16 years old. But I think
Yeah.
he's advocating to sell the current backhoe, which is much newer. So my have a question out to him, he hasn't answered me, is it 200,000 for a brand new loader, if he's estimating it's 50 to 80,000 to sell the backhoe? Because if it's 200,000 for a brand new loader, he thinks he might get 50 or 80 for a backhoe, I would cut that number down and use that money to buy his boiler. But I don't know, maybe it's 250 for the new loader, so I have a question into him about the funding on that, about the, cost on that. Do you know what I'm saying? Usually
Yeah.
you can't know what an amount is going to be that you're going to get, so it's hard to say, buy a new truck that would be 150, but you think you can sell an old one for 50, so we're only going to give you 100. But this is a pretty new backhoe. I mean, it's 2017. So if he thinks he can get 50 to 80,000 for that backhoe, is that on top of the loader cost or included in the cost estimate? That's a question I have for him.
I thought it was included, so check
That's
that.
why I want to check. So that means the cost of a new loader is 250,000.
Right.
That's what I wanted to check on.
Okay, before we support this, then, let's find that out.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm just wondering if, and I understand why they don't always include the trade-in as in their request, because you can't guarantee it.
but this is such a large amount that,
Well, and this is such a new vehicle that he's trading in, you know you're gonna get something good for,
Oh, yeah.
for that. So I'll check on that, and it only occurred to me the other day when I started talking about this, and then I was like, we should check on that.
okay.
Because that's really expensive, but maybe loaders are $280,000.
It's something 2017, it's
That's
too
about
early
so.
to be getting rid of it. Okay, now we'll move on to, the road improvements on Old Winter Road. And as I recall from its being in and talking to us, it's people that got building lots there on that. There's been no connection between, I don't know what you call it, the lower end of Old Winter Road and the upper end that comes out onto Maple Street. So, this is to do some work on that.
Yeah, I think the poor people on Upper Old Wendell are gonna be all excited when they see this, and then they're gonna freak out when they realize it's not their end of the road.
Well, most of this will just be for engineering, to tell you the truth. It's gonna cost a heck of a lot more than 200,000 to connect both ends of
I don't think
Wendell.
he was gonna go that far up. And I assume he's proposing gravel, not paving it.
Well, okay, that,
Engineering
always-
and clearing for drainage.
think of it, Jack, as over the ledges. That's what they used to always call
Not
it.
up that far, I don't believe.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna connect them, I don't think he can get that far.
Okay,
I believe it's the lower end where they have almost like a cul-de-sac at the end right now, and there's a kiosk there for, hiking. So it's a lower end that they're extending on where they have some building lots that are either for sale or have been sold.
yeah,
Just so you know, there's been a petition from 10 residents of
Yeah.
Upper Old Wendell Road to pave their road. This is not addressing that.
that's what I wondered about. I saw that,
Yeah, they're gonna be pretty upset when this money gets spent on Lower Old Wendell. I mean, I don't see the options, but, because that's technically a town road and it's not in existence. So something has to get done.
yeah. In other words, the
Man,
the
I suspect
paving,
you might see this article again next year, is what I'm thinking, of
Yeah.
some kind.
of course, the thing is that Dan said, somebody sold building lots up there, and I remember a few years ago, somebody had, wanted to move a modular home in there, something. But, okay, so the paving ends, I don't know whether it ends at Sissons or a little further on. And then this petition was to have paving go beyond that.
That's a different matter. That's not gonna be covered by this article.
No, they're two different things, I realize,
Yeah.
yes. And, okay,
So So I suspect there may be some addressing of that in the next year's budget. Somehow, someone's
Yeah.
gonna have to deal with some road improvements on the other end at some
Too
point.
late for this now. Okay, as you say, Jack, though, that 200,000 is barely covering engineering costs rather than any physical work on it.
The town is legally obligated to put a passable road in,
Yeah,
because the road was never discontinued.
right.
So I think we should support the 200,000.
Okay,
Are you making a motion, Jack? If you are, I'll second it.
I move we support the $200,000 for improvements to Old Wendell Road.
Dan Campbell seconds that.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous on that then, okay? We'll get to the funding on these things, but, okay, the floor mats, Andrea has told us about having the floors refinished and so forth, and then having some covering for them.
I think I can get the floor work done in this year's budget. I think I have enough to cover getting some of those floors done. Because we didn't really have a capital article this year, and there is some money in maintenance for capital projects, so I'm hoping to get it. I'm even hoping maybe I can get the floor done in the auditorium too, but I don't know for sure yet. But I'd like to do both of downstairs and the upstairs,
Yeah.
as much
So
as I can.
this is 5,000 for floor mats then. Anybody with thoughts on that? I don't have a problem with it.
no, I don't have a
We
problem
don't
with
need
that
it.
at all.
I have no problem with it
Make
either.
a motion to-
Okay, all right, put that on the list of funding.
28 grand for the school.
Were you doing a motion for that, or is that just an agreement?
It's an agreement, I think.
Why don't you make a motion that we're official on it?
Dan Campbell makes a motion that we recommend the carpets for the town hall.
Second, anybody?
Tony seconds.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Thank you. Our recommendation on the work for the elementary school. Flooring, and Andrea's told us about that, and then the computer switch. 28,000.
Well, the switch is 18,000.
Yeah,
9 to 10 is what you put in for flooring each year.
right. Any problem with that one?
No?
Get it be done.
Need a motion?
Dan Campbell makes a motion to
Support.
recommend the $28,000 for the elementary school for repair and placement of flooring and new computer switch.
Second, anybody?
Jack seconds.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I think we voted this once before, didn't we, about the stove for the
Yes, we
town
have.
hall kitchen?
Yeah, I think we agreed to that last week.
Yeah,
The only thing we changed it to the town hall kitchen.
Yeah, it
Yes.
did, yes.
yeah, she did that, thank you. Okay,
18. Oh, the 350.
I think we discussed that too.
yeah,
We did discuss it.
all right. Now, is that going to include the hookup and everything when they buy the stove? That includes the installation?
Well, there shouldn't be much installation because you already have one there. So it should be
Okay.
pretty minor. I don't see that you would have to have any additional funding.
Okay. stabilization fund.
Yeah.
Before we'll get into the other. And I noticed that you've got a figure of 150, and
Put it in.
the amount, I looked it up somewhere, but we've got, how much have we got? Have you got it right there, Andy? How
Your
much?
total stabilization fund? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in, because you only have one right now.
Yeah.
But yes, you have $1.5 million, it's on the spreadsheet. You go to the bottom, it's $1,527,630.63. So $1,527,630.
Okay. So you'd like to see a capital stabilization fund. I guess the thing is, Andrea, I've thought of it for capital items anyway, but you'd like to have it labeled for capital.
Well, here's the reasoning in general. Now that you're doing your new financial policies and procedures.
Yes.
It's generally acceptable, and generally thought of, to take a general stabilization fund with the mentality that it helps to backfill your town budget. Should funding fall off, should the revenues that you estimated not materialize in a particular fiscal year, should the governor decide to do 9C cuts in the middle of the year, that's what your general stabilization does. It's for your financing, it's for your budget, it's for that piece. A capital stabilization account is for capital improvements, saving for capital improvements, buying trucks, building buildings. There's two different logics to them. And generally people keep a certain amount in their general stabilization, which is often 3 to 5 or 3 to 8% of their budget. So that you've got a cushion of 5% of your budget should something happen to 5% of your revenue or your expenditures, or all of a sudden, something not capital related, but if all of a sudden, you needed, an insurance match because a building burnt down or something, not a capital improvement that you're saving for. And then you have the capital stabilization account, which is money you're really trying to put away towards capital projects, whether it be one or multiple. And you try to keep a certain amount in your general stabilization at all times, and then if you spend it, you replenish that. It's kind of like the state's rainy day fund. Then you'd replenish it. So you're keeping that 5% or so in that account for that logic versus a capital account, which is to build, which is to create, to buy, which is to, make a capital purchase. It's just, I know it seems a little mental math, but it's just a little bit cleaner when you go to look at what you have available for your capital purchases to take your general stabilization out of that equation. You shouldn't ever be dipping into that for your capital purchases, because that's your backup nest egg money if something were to happen for the rest of your budget.
So what you're looking to do is, of that $1,527,000, you're looking to transfer $1 million
Yes.
into this capital stabilization.
Yeah. Keep the 500,000 in your general. That's 10% of, or 5% of your budget.
Yeah.
Perfect. So just put it in there. It'll continue to grow interest. If you have to ever dip into it because all of a sudden there's a revenue issue or something would have happened, the governor cuts or whatever, then you can go into your general and then you could replenish that in the future going forward. But the idea with the capital would be, we're on the march to build that new building. We're on the march to save up for very expensive trucks. We're on the march. And that's a separate account. So people don't say, well, why don't you just buy it? You have $1.5 million. No. We have $1 million in our capital account. You know what I mean? We don't want them to think that 500,000 is something to just be used to buy things. That's really your savings account for any emergency. Now, could you dip into it 100 or 200 to buy a capital thing? Of course you can. It's not off the table. You can do anything you want with it. But I think it tries to shift people's mentality on what you're doing with your money and why you're saving where you are and what you're saving for. There's two different logics to those savings. Putting $1 million in there, and then I think every year, unless you're replenishing your general, you're putting money in your capital account in general. Unless you need to go back and replenish your general stabilization, the idea would be to build your capital stabilization going forward for a while.
And in this process, I've talked about this cell tower money, and you're saying that has to stay in a special account. And
Yep.
so we're not talking about moving that into
We can't,
stabilization.
you can't by law.
Okay,
You can only appropriate that when it's time to appropriate it. So think of it as your back pocket of stabilization. So this million, if you put that in, then say you put another 150 in, you're gonna have $1.6 million in capital money, because that other 430,000 is capital money. But it can only be used for things you would borrow for. That's the law. So it's just sort of your back pocket piece. We'd add it to here if we could, but the law doesn't allow that. So you'll appropriate it someday towards a capital expense
okay.
or expenses.
Jack, you've been a part of all this back when there was no stabilization money at all, and building up this amount. What do you think of relabeling it?
Well, I think it's a useful move to make. I don't think we're under any threat to use the general stabilization fund for operating expenses, but as Andrea says, who knows what the future holds. The paperwork I have, what is the amount we're suggesting goes into that this go around?
So you'd move $1 million from your general, leaving the 500 and change. And then this says 150,000, but
Right.
that's just a number you guys can change that.
So it would just be a transfer.
The $1 million would just be a transfer on paper. Well, she may have to put it in different bank accounts, I'm not sure. But yes, that's just an accounting transfer. Set up a separate account for it on paper. It'd have its own account number, and it'd be that money would be in there.
So it's just a line item transfer.
Yes. But you have to create the account to do it, and then you have to actually vote by 2/3, because you're taking it from one stabilization account, even though you're putting it into another. Anytime you take money from a stabilization account, it's a 2/3 vote, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good idea, because the big expense going forward is going to be the public safety facility, and the capital stabilization fund could be used for that. And I don't anticipate we'd be under any threat to use $500,000 general stabilization for our omnibus anytime in the near future. So I think it's a good idea, and as long as there's not extra money going into that, I think people will understand and be receptive to it.
Yes, if you want to put more money into it, then that's another vote,
Yes.
which I'm
And
proposing
she
you
does
to
want to
do.
put some in, but why don't we first vote on that transfer? And then when we're considering about allocating our money, take up whether we add to it or not.
Right, in
So-
21, I have establishing it and putting some money in, but you can change that.
Yes, yeah. So
Well,
how about?
we usually have, an article in there putting some monies into stabilization
Yes.
anyway. So I don't see what, if we, transfer some money to the capitalization, stabilization fund, we put in 150,000.
It just didn't make sense that if you're going to be transferring money from the general, that you put money back into the general. It made more sense.
Right, I'm just saying that
Whatever amount you
it's
decide.
just gonna take the place, that 150 is gonna take the place of what we would probably, put into stabilization if we had it.
Right,
Yes.
and like I said, that number is movable. It's just I was just trying to work with the budget you had in a reasonable.
So I wouldn't put them all in the same thing. I would vote to make that transfer to the capital stabilization fund. And then when we get to the end, we deal with the 150,000 or whatever we
Yes,
think is appropriate for putting it into.
Right,
Yeah.
you guys can discuss that amount.
Yes, I think that's a good
I have
idea.
a question, though, as far as on the capital stabilization fund. Is there anything that can't be used for? Say we decide we wanted to buy down, the tax rate, could we use that capital, stabilization fund to do that? Or is it only used for
No.
capital items?
No, technically, as any stabilization fund, no matter what you call it, can be used for anything the town lawfully appropriates it for.
Didn't know if we were locked into,
The only thing that you can't do that with is OPEB.
okay,
That's why I've pulled you back from being quite so aggressive. Once you put money in OPEB, that's it.
Yeah.
You can't use it for anything. So you guys are fairly well funded and, I wouldn't be as aggressive on that. I would be a little more aggressive in your stabilization.
okay, I make a motion that we transfer $1 million from our general stabilization fund into the capital stabilization fund.
Is there a second?
Well, do we have to set up the capital stabilization fund first
Sort of
before we
self-evident,
can transfer it? It's a technical thing.
just technicality.
I mean,
And why don't you say, and create a
And, okay.
well, start with create and then transfer.
Create okay.
Okay.
Let me amend that. I make a motion that we create a capital stabilization fund and transfer from general stabilization the total of $1 million.
I would second that.
sounds good. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, now we're gonna get to allocating what money we have toward these things that we're approving in a few minutes.
So we gotta back up a little bit. So the $150,000, we're gonna put in.
You haven't discussed that yet.
We haven't discussed that. We'll,
You know, so we're gonna
I'd say
back
put
up
it
to
off.
that article, right?
When we decide how we're gonna pay for some of these other things we approve, we'll consider
Okay.
that.
Yeah, all right.
Now, this is something new. Right-of-way expenses for Shell Bridge, $25,000.
It's brand spanking new. Isn't that
I thought it
attractive?
was no cost to the town.
Well, the bridge is no cost. But,
Still,
and you know what, I don't know that we're gonna expend all of this, in all honesty. The only reason this number is here is because I just did my first the 75% plan for right-of-way has been accepted, has been approved by Mass DOT. So I have forwarded, I'm working with all these different pieces now to try and start getting some of this done. I think the Moody Center is gonna donate their piece, which is a huge chunk. If they do that, it's big. I have a couple of residents that I'm working with. A big impact is on First Light. I just had my first meeting this coming Thursday. I reached out to them, I sent them the right-of-way, and I said, you guys have heard of this project, right? And their representative here said, oh, yes, but, so I sent them the 75% to look at, and all I got back, and I got back a response from their, land
Yeah.
person who can, and she said, okay, but here's our process, and she sent me a sheet, and it has all this stuff that you have to go through with their process, and the months it takes, and their legal department, and this can be $8,000 to $12,000, and this can be $8,000 to $12,000, so we normally recommend that people budget $25,000. Now, having said that, I've had no conversations with this woman yet, none at all. So I'm gonna try and lay it on pretty thick, that yes, that's the standard procedure, but I'm gonna try and see if I can get them to suck some of that up since they're in the relicensing phase right now. It would be really good publicity for them to go along with this Shell Bridge and, do the town a favor. I don't think they're gonna suck up 25 grand, but we might be able to, do something with that.
Now, question, Andrea, on these rights of way, is this for the access during the construction, or is this permanent access?
Yes.
It's
There's a
both.
short answer. It's both.
We did not discontinue that road.
Correct.
Should be an existing right-of-way.
Oh, this is not much more impact than that.
Well, I know, temporary, but not permanent.
Well, interesting you should say that. I sat in on a meeting. A lot of work they're doing on the abutments is going to be considered permanent impact on land that belongs to First Light, because guess what? The town does not own the land under the bridge.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
all the abutment work you're doing is all permitted impact. But I'm happy to send you just let me know, Jack, I'll send you the right-of-way plans and you can see thousands of square feet of impact on in various places. But I'm happy to share it with you. It's a public document.
Oh, I'm not, that was just a question. It wasn't.
No, but in all honesty, I mean, the right-of-way stuff it's 144 pages for the project plan, but the right-of-way is only 20. And it does at least have a sheet in there that breaks down the permanent and temporary easements for each piece, and it shows the lines, there's drawings, and, a couple of them I don't get, but there's a whole bunch of them that actually show the breakdown, and I'm happy to let anybody see them, because you might just be curious, of what the impacts are, and some is permanent, and some is temporary. But the cost of going through all this, to get them to even give us a temporary easement, is the cost of going through their legal department, whether it's temporary or permanent. At the applicant's expense, and we're the applicant.
The number is shocking, and just tell them at town meeting they're not going to come off very good.
Well, that's what I was going to kind of try to, while they're going through relicensing and they're supposed to be dealing with the recreational pieces and they're supposed to be dealing with the, land impacts, and they're supposed to be dealing with all these different impacts, that this is a recreational impact that they might be able to get in their plan is a little bit more favorable towards their relicensing. That's how I'm going to approach it and see if I can get them to. Now, the person I'm dealing with, probably she's not part of the relicensing, so she hasn't heard this spiel yet. I'm going to try and lay it on her, and we are going to also have present the woman who's kind of like the on-the-grounds person that, that is our face person. She might be the liaison to be able to try and deal with between legal and the relicensing people. The woman who's going to be doing the land and legal, she's not even, this isn't even in probably in her wheelhouse, but it's going to be on Thursday. I'm going to kind of bring that to their attention, and I'm going to see what I can do to get something more favorable to the town. But in the meantime, I got to bring this to you guys, and I got to bring it to the select board, because I am not going to be responsible for shutting down a $20 million bridge project by not putting a warrant article on. So that's where it stands, and I just think that now that they want this work to start right away, we got to get the right of way. They're talking, it's going to take months to move this through First Light. They wanted to bid this project later this summer. I got to get this ball rolling. I can't stop. I can't stop personally. So I have to just keep inching along, and this article
I think that's what we're faced with. I mean, we can sit and say, okay, yeah, we heard them say no cost to the town, but in the meantime, the bridge is there, and we thought it would be gone long before this, as far as deteriorating and that sort of thing. So, how are you doing with the other abutters? Is there one or something that's holding out?
Well, there's one I have not been able to hear from. I've written them a letter finally, but they are only going to be 50 square feet of permanent easement for a pole. So I'm not horribly concerned with them. I think we can probably work that. There is another abutter who has a larger impact, and I'm trying to set up a meeting with him in person on the site. And he's really the only other abutter who has any impact at all. It's really very limited. We're really lucky. Actually, it's only a few people. So I'm not sure where he's going to stand on this. Between Moody, First Light, and then the two abutters on the west side are really the four. I mean, there's some people nearby, and we've kind of talked to them to try and make sure they're okay with what's going on, but they are not abutters in the true sense of having to sign off on easements.
I suppose, in a way, that's their way of objecting to the project, not so much for protecting their land, but they don't want the people that's going to bring, maybe,
I don't know yet. I haven't gotten that sense. The people who haven't responded, I don't know. I just haven't been able to get through to them. I've just tried 2 different phone numbers and never gotten them. Now I've written them a letter and said, please, I'm trying to reach you.
Okay.
So I will continue that. And the other one is their butter is willing to meet with me, so they haven't objected to anything yet. But they may ask for funding. They could very easily ask to be compensated as well. It's within their legal right to do so.
So are we going to support this article? Actually, I don't know that we have much choice, but other than to put it before the voters.
Well, the thing is, when we did this in town meeting, the consensus was we weren't gonna spend a nickel or a dime on the bridge. However, if we were had to tear the bridge down, we would have to incur these costs anyway. And then, obviously, tear down the bridge. So for $25,000, we get, what, $5 million worth of bridge? To me, it's a no-brainer.
20 million.
20 million, I'm
It's
sorry.
a 20 million project.
Well, so basically, to me, it's a no-brainer.
If it stops at this, that's the thing of it, but anyway, you're right, Dan. So, does anybody want to make a motion on it? And then we'll see where the
I
money
mean, this
comes
is not gonna, this may not be the bottom line. I can't guarantee that.
No, I realize.
And they have already paid, we've paid some for legal, the select board authorized that. And I just signed another contract because we have to have all the Mylars drawings drawn up. Now, that's gonna be out of the legal, they approved that. They approved a set amount that I could spend out of legal to do the various pieces. But I now have to deal with our attorneys again because they have to legally draw up the language for these easements. Fortunately, we only have 4, so we're not having them draw dozens. But there's still ongoing legal costs that I'm incurring because I'm not drawing up these legal easements. Those are land documents. So the legal's gonna have to do that.
Okay, Dan, you made a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that I do support this, or that we support this article, the town, finance committee.
Is there a second?
I, Bernie Barada, second that motion.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Tony?
Aye. Aye.
Bernie?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Big sigh.
Sue? Aye. And
Aye.
Dan? And I'll say aye. Okay, unanimous, everybody? Okay. All right,
Do we go back to the previous one for a minute?
yeah,
Setting up a capital stabilization fund requires a majority.
Yes. Moving
vote.
money is 2/3.
Putting money is in 2/3, so the article we
No,
combined them.
putting money in would have been 2/3.
Moving them.
Moving it from
moving the
general
money.
is 2/3, yes.
Okay, now, what's that motion gonna require?
2/3 of the voters have to vote yes to put the money in the account. Only majority to create it, but 2/3 to move it from one stabilization to the other.
You deal with
I don't know, I
one
just-
stabilization to another.
Yeah, I'm just
it's the
wondering.
same as spending it, really.
Right, once you take it out of an account, you gotta get 2/3 to get it out, no matter what you're doing with it. We're just putting it in another one, but it's still 2/3 to withdraw it.
So it's gonna be a 2/3 majority. I was just looking at the thing
Yes.
and,
Yeah, I've made a note of that on there.
Okay.
Because you're moving it, the minute you take it out of a stabilization account, you gotta vote 2/3 on that.
okay, putting them together is gonna require the 2/3.
Right,
Okay.
creating it is nothing. Creating it is
Right.
great
Okay.
all day long. But yeah, moving money, there's more control on it, town meeting control on it.
Now we're, Article 30. We talked about this once before.
I
This
have to
is,
get the details from Beth. So
Yeah.
Beth, we have to work on this, we have to get this in here. This is an old one from somewhere else. We just have to
Yeah,
get the
this-
details in.
it's not money for us, but we kind of wondered where it is.
Well, it will be if paying in lieu of taxes is sown.
I'm sorry.
It will be money to the town to sign a pilot, and this is authorizing the select board to enter into a pilot.
Yes, okay. But we don't know whether it's a project under consideration now or
The
something
Latoile
else.
property.
It is that one.
It will be once we put in yes, it's just general because I don't have the details to put in there. But yes, this article's going in to give the select board authority to
Okay.
do that. It may not ever happen. It could be they never permitted, it could be the planning board votes it down, but we can't do a pilot unless the town gives them the authority to do it.
Yeah.
So it's
Similar to the one that was done over, on the Lane, when Lane owned, the property, they had a proposal for a solar array. So we had, during town meeting vote, do the the identical article, and in fact, I think, Andre, you're probably using that one as.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, a template, so it doesn't necessarily, like, it might never come to fruition, but it's just, so it's
Right.
in place, so it can get acted on immediately, so we don't lose a year of potential pilot.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just giving them authority to negotiate it if the project ever happens. This doesn't
Okay.
guarantee the project will or won't, or have any sway in what the planning board decides. It's just the authority, if it happens, to create a pilot, because like she said, we don't want to
So-
lose that revenue.
Do we need the finance committee's recommendation on it?
That's up to you.
Did we ever, do anything with the college? I know you guys did a pilot program with them. Did we ever chime in on that?
We have one with Moody, we don't have one with the college yet.
Okay, so Moody, did we ever do anything? Was the finance committee?
No,
involved
you
in
don't
that?
need, this is because it's solar.
Okay, because it's a business kind of thing? Well, not.
Solar has specific laws to it.
Okay.
There's a lot of statutes on how to deal with solar. And
I think
even
it's a
how
good
to,
idea to do this, because.
if this project goes through,
So-
this project is worth many millions of dollars. This would be a substantial revenue to the town.
Is it my understanding, is it my understanding a pilot program is better than taxing because the program would, it would diminish over years, you'd have less and less, to tax?
Beth can speak to that.
Yes. Yeah, because it
This
would
would be-
depreciate really fast, so the pilot is a 20-year agreement, so that way the town knows for 20 years what they can expect in revenue.
Again, something that would be a smart thing to have, and because of that, if you're looking for recommendations from the finance committee, I support this I would recommend that, or,
How do you put that in the?
yeah, I don't know.
Just spell that.
It's a raspberry.
Dan Campbell makes a motion to it, to recommend Article 30, or this article.
Is there a second?
Jack seconds.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
I don't think we need to get involved.
The next three are the local acceptance provision, local tax acceptance provisions.
Yeah.
I haven't played with the notes on those. They won't look like this. I haven't tucked them down yet. And I have to
Okay.
run their language by the lawyer, make sure that that's.
And do we want to weigh in on these?
I don't think we should weigh in on these yet until we get all of the legal implications, and I want to,
Well, you've got all the legal implications.
okay.
Unless
The
you
other
have
thing I
any
want to know
specific
what
questions.
the select board thinks of this also.
Yeah. And they got their warrant last week, so I'm hoping that, I'm gonna put it on their agenda again this coming week to see if they have any questions or discussions they wanna make. So,
Basically, it's a user's tax, but a lot of the town folks are still users, so it will basically affect them in some way, shape, or form. Everybody goes to all of the things in town, maybe not to the B&Bs or anything like that, but we do go and buy things in town, so we will pick up some of that, or the taxpayers will be paying for some of that, so I'm torn at this moment.
We don't really have to go weigh in on it, really, select board.
I don't think we do.
you don't
No.
have to. It's up to
No.
you.
The one I do want to comment on though is the one about marijuana.
Yeah, you really should put that one in place. You
It's
don't
hard,
have a
man.
marijuana now, but
Just if something comes in, you want to be prepared, is that correct?
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, and I think that's a good thing. Some of these things you can't do after the fact, it's too late then.
Yeah, if they come in, then they're grandfathered under old provisions, you may have a hard time imposing this.
Right. I think we should support that one.
Somebody make a motion, I'm sick of making a motion.
Let's see.
All
article that you're not taking any action on, that you're not taking any action on it. Because you're gonna have one where you've made a vote. Well, if you're talking about not doing the local option meals and beverage, do you want me to note that you're not taking a position?
I just as soon not put any note on it, and not, because then it would be questions as to why and all that sort of thing. I don't know how the rest of you feel. I just think let the selectmen make the decision, and we can, okay, the law says that the finance committee can make recommendations to the voters on anything that's brought before town meeting. We have traditionally only done it on money articles, but it doesn't stop us from doing it on anything. And you want to call that a money article, whatever. As far as I'm concerned, just let it go. But if you want to say something one way or the other,
No, that's up to you.
yeah,
Sometimes if you're recommending one, they're gonna say, why didn't you comment on the other?
That's true.
yeah. Well,
So you can speak to it at the time. They may not even notice.
yeah, put it on then. It's the truth.
Yeah, I just usually put something like the finance committee takes no position on this article.
Yeah,
That would
okay.
be fine with me.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
No problem.
I think I interrupted your motion. I don't think you voted yet. I'm sorry.
No, I was ready, waiting for you to finish this. I'll make a motion to, that the finance committee is in favor of Article 32, which is to impose a tax upon the retail sales of marijuana or marijuana products.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Dan Campbell says yes.
Tony,
Bernie
yes.
says yes.
Yes.
Yes. Unanimous then.
Are you
Okay.
weighing in on the room occupancy tax?
What is it? Oh,
The last one.
That last one.
What's that one?
that would be like,
Bed and
third
breakfast.
breakfast.
It's any room, any rental of, like a hotel, bed and breakfast.
Oh,
Short term.
Short-term rentals, not apartments, not leases, not.
yeah, I thought we'd skip, same as the other tax.
The meals tax you were looking at.
Yeah. Somebody want to take a position on this one?
I think this is the one that could raise you the most money.
So if
That
somebody
many-
wanted an Airbnb, they would, it's passed along to the user of that, right?
Yeah, it's like a hotel tax. When you go to a city and you stay and there's a tax on it, a hotel tax,
Yeah.
that's what this is. It's a local tax.
It
And the
actually-
reason I say that is because they're building Revell and Holton are gonna be two large bed and breakfasts or hotel style things being developed by the Moody Center.
Yeah.
So there's a number of rooms in each of those.
When you're dealing short term, you're not dealing with people coming in that live here usually. So, it would be paid by people who are not in the community, so it wouldn't necessarily look to them as a tax. So I would agree with this.
I agree also, because again, it's like a user fee more, and again, for temporary, people coming into town, and I don't think it would affect the taxpayers, specifically as much as a meals tax would. So I'm in favor of it. I'll vote in favor of it.
So are you making a motion there, sir?
All right, I'll make a motion that the Finance Committee supports Article number 33, putting in a rooms or room tax.
Dan Campbell seconds that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Dan Campbell
Aye.
said yes.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. We've got to get down to the funding now. As far as the omnibus is concerned, I had on here to make a final vote. We could make a final vote on the omnibus with the exception of the school budget, of the Pioneer Valley Regional School budget. We've got the tech school. That's okay. Why don't we do that? We've agreed on everything else in the omnibus. Andrea knows that she's gotta wait for the school, but
Yeah.
you can't do the totals and so forth, but we've along the way, we've made, votes on the omnibus saying we supported it with the provision that there be funding. Let's finalize that except for the Pioneer budget.
I make a motion that we accept the omnibus with the one exception being the Pioneer Valley budget.
Is there a second?
Bernie Parada, second that motion.
Is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
We'll come back to it when they give it to us.
Yeah. And,
So now I have to add, the article I'll be adding is the highway garage boiler.
Boiler, yeah.
So I'll add that in, bumping most of the other ones down. I mean, I'll put that in around capital stuff. That's why I don't page number yet, because everything's gonna get shifted. It's fine.
okay, so this is the sheet that you've got with the allocation.
Right, that is currently just sort of the,
And so I had some thoughts on it here. Actually, I wanted to start with free cash and see how far that would go. And we have $635,378 in free cash, as I recall. That's what I looked up, right, Andrea?
yes.
Okay, so, down through the items, that we've got here, well, the first one has to be, prior year bills has to be free cash.
Yeah, we pay them right away. Once you vote by free cash, I can pay them, otherwise I have to wait till July 1st.
Yes. Okay. And then the omnibus, and of course, we just talked about it. EMS budget, that is the ambulance payment plus interest. So that's okay.
50-50 split for the truck.
Well, we're down to radios. If we're talking about our capital items, possibly that's radios for fire department and EMS. That's what we decided. And then, now, we're getting into this, whether you want to split that. One thing I want to ask about is what's happened to the fire department rescue vehicle?
No, he's holding it for a year, I think. Yes, he's holding it for a year. So the one thing you could do here, I went back and forth and I just left it alone, is you could put the whole truck in taxation and put the other stuff, move that money for stabilization money into free cash. That would make the article cleaner and not split it in half.
Yeah.
So that was the one place where I said, well, you could go either way on this. So if you put
Well, I
the
was
whole,
thinking of the work on Old Wendell Road going under taxation.
yeah,
And this other that you, okay, now Skip put in for that vehicle for 22 fiscal year. That's what he's got on the request, capital request.
but I think it was noted that he moved it to 23 when he came back into the meeting, when he came to the meeting.
Well, I think that was more of the idea that if you need to, I would accept
Okay.
moving it. And, here's one department getting almost $500,000, and another one we're saying you can wait.
Well, if you're gonna find out that that's what you want, it's gonna change the whole, complexion here a little bit. So we might wanna have that clarified first.
As far as I'm concerned, we're talking about a rescue vehicle that takes the emergency equipment, which is jaws of life, things like that they need. And this is the vehicle that carries them. I realize that sort of thing. So, how much does that, if we put that in, if we talk about free cash being for capital items, would be the truck and move the,
Wendell Road out.
move that into taxation. Then what? How does it come out?
And I'm just gonna throw 150 into a line item here so I can see what it
Yeah.
does. So, we gotta move something else out of
Free cash?
free cash. Because you took, oh, hang on, no, I didn't delete that yet, hold on, nope, that's better. That's better. Now you have $66,929 unspent in free cash, because you took 200 out and you put 150 in. So now you have 66,929 unspent. Now, what that does to your tax rate is 58 cents. You go to 1670 on the tax rate. Just letting you know.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, I can do whatever you want and then send it out again, and you can see the changes.
Sure.
I mean, if you have the spreadsheet, you can punch these numbers in, you'll see the changes yourself. Just do it on the yellow page, it's already linked to the budget summary.
Well, there's another item that could go under taxation too. I'm thinking, when I think of it going under taxation, I think of current expense type of thing, and I'm thinking of that 350th money.
So you want to take that out of free cash and to raise by taxation?
But, but I don't want to keep drawing the free cash. And
Well,
leaving
free cash is
balance.
getting higher.
Yeah,
We have,
that's,
6,000 in free cash right now
67,000.
that we can utilize?
Right, because we moved the 200 out and the 150 in.
yeah, and I'm not looking to,
Now, you
it's
gotta
not my
remember,
intention.
you have a $40,000 request for the boiler that is not in here.
That's a good point.
So if I put the 40,000 in, that
Into
leaves you
free cash.
27, you may not want to touch anything just now.
As a point, a boiler out of free cash.
Right. I'm typing it in on another of this CPA
So you have
lines, just
that
so I can
27
see.
left in there?
You would have $26,929.35, so 27,000 left.
It's kind of,
You don't necessarily want to take it all the way down, too.
No.
It's your free
But-
cash next year.
And how
But-
much was the boiler you said again?
So he's requesting 40.
That's right, yeah, thank you.
so here's a thought.
Yeah,
The Shell Bridge is 25,000, we have 27,000 to work with. If we took the Shell Bridge out of free cash and say, well, it's not raised by taxation, kinda, because it's from last year.
yeah,
Raised by last year's, not this year.
But, you're not gonna get, it's not gonna raise your taxes this year.
right, is it, where'd you put it now? It's in there?
Right now, it's sitting in raised by taxation.
Yeah. That would bring it down,
2,000, about $2,000
yeah,
that we have left.
And it changes the tax rate, I can tell you what that, you'd have $1,900 left in the free cash. And your tax rate would be 53 cents instead of 58 cents. 1665 instead of 1680 or 1670.
people keep complaining that the tax rate goes up. I had complained.
Tax rates are down the last 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were 1741 per thousand, but a year or two ago, yeah.
Beth, you had complaints this year, I'm sure. I know one did.
Well, their taxes don't necessarily fall just because the tax rate fell.
Yeah, values went up, tax rate went down, so it
Yeah,
kind
people
of,
don't understand it both
yeah.
sides.
Well, they feed each other too. If you're gonna pay for the budget, if you put, you only
Yeah.
need a certain amount for the budget, yeah, if one rises, the other will fall. Your rate, if your values go up, your tax rate has to fall.
We can play with this and move it around, and this one, I
Yeah,
can
if
see
you've
this.
got this spreadsheet, you just go to this yellow page.
Yeah,
You move the money around, you can jump to the budget summary tab, it'll show you your impact, it happens automatic.
yeah,
They're linked. So they will show you every time you move something from raise appropriate to free cash. But I'm gonna redo this tomorrow because you guys, I need to add the article for the 40 for the highway. So I have to
Now-
put that article in.
what did this do with the truck? Does it still leave it split, or is it in?
The 150 is in free cash, so I have to add the article for the truck.
No,
Right
I'm
now.
talking about the highway
Oh,
truck.
no, the article for the highway is still split.
Yeah. And
It's
then we
still-
just added a rescue truck for the,
For 150. So I have to
Yeah.
add 2 articles tomorrow. Just make sure I get those in to the right place. And then you'll have the chart you can play with. If you
Well,
want. But
I don't, what do the rest of you think? I don't know.
I guess I'd like to see a final updated spreadsheet before a final decision. I'm not saying I disagree with anything that's been proposed, but it's all kind of a jumble in my head right now.
I'll put those 2 articles in. I'll put them on the way you've kind of proposed here, and I send it back out, and then you guys have it.
Okay, now, is this, we've had to add in for the rights of way, and we had to add in for the highway furnace, whatever you want to call it.
The boiler and the rescue truck too.
Yeah, and that. So there's 3 things
Well,
that,
the right of way is in,
all right,
so it's just a boiler truck and
the boiler and the rescue truck.
yeah.
okay.
And moving Old Wendell Road to raise and appropriate, taking it out of free cash and putting the truck in free cash spot.
Yeah. How do you people feel about that?
And if I take Old Wendell Road out and put in the rescue truck and the boiler, it's almost an even swap, because one's 190, when you add the 2 together, it's 190, and Old Wendell Road goes out to 200. So you're,
Okay. Is it, Jack, I know, up on the Chapter 90 business, is there any state assistance on Old Wendell Road at all? Probably not.
oh yeah.
The county road, so yeah, it should be eligible for Chapter 90. But again, 200,000
It's just the engineering is,
just the beginning, yeah, so.
okay, okay. Well, how did the rest of you feel about it, Andrea, doing updated
I think that's
spreadsheet?
a good idea, and I think that what we'll do is we'll look at it once we have them in front of us again next week, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that also.
That makes sense.
yep, I agree.
okay,
Okay.
all right. What I was, town meeting is 7 weeks from tonight, Andrea, right? Whatever.
Don't scare me like that, Lois.
Uh,
You're trying to give me nightmares.
we're,
You wanna-
I hope, and Dan probably does, and you too, that we can have it in our usual fashion this year and have it timely. Okay, so what I know we're not gonna finish tonight, that's okay, I'm okay with that. We could say that we have an hour to ourselves next week, and then, I want to invite the select board in, but I'd hate to lose another whole week on it, time-wise. So what do you think if we had an hour for ourselves and then invited them for 7 o'clock? Is that something that would work?
So the only thing we really need to go over now is the spreadsheet and where funds are coming from, correct? Really?
As
That's
far
it?
as yes.
Full budget.
Well, when they
And the
update on
school
the school budget.
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
basically that, I believe that should take us no more than an hour. We're at a 99% done here.
Yeah, now that's another thing, the school budget. What you've got in there is what they've said so far. If that goes up,
It's on raise and appropriate.
yes, it
So you have to
raises
look
that
at
up.
the tax rate, figure it out.
And as far as I'm concerned, as far as the school budget, if we've got the taxpayers want to vote it, they vote it, but we'll have to have a recommendation. So, all right, that's a good point. So we'll do the allocation of funds, we'll do the school budget, and that's.
So I'll send out an invitation tomorrow to the select board for 7 o'clock on Monday night for you to join them by Zoom.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Okay.
I don't think we're that far off with them as far as the discussion.
I don't think so.
No, so, all
We've
right,
had way less discussion than you have, so they'll be,
yeah,
which they
All
usually
right.
do anyway.
okay. Anything else?
Hey,
that-
Tony, when are we gonna see articles from the Community Preservation Committee? I've got blanks. I mean, it doesn't matter, it doesn't impact the tax rate,
Probably
but
by the end of the week, certainly by the 22nd, we'll
Alright.
definitely have them in.
well, as soon as you send them, I'll fill in the warrant.
What,
We're just getting what we want our wording to be, so.
Okay. Sounds
what
good.
happened about the town clock? Repairs?
Oh.
He only found one place that would do it and, right, you only found one
Well,
place that was laid out. I haven't heard from anyone.
I talked to a fella down in Goshen, anyway, and he's more one of the suburbs of Boston, and he wasn't too wild about that idea. And he says, well, he knows of a place up in Maine. You know, there aren't very many around. He was going to check around people that he knew and was going to give me a call back. I'm going to call him again probably tomorrow and see what progress, if any, he's made. There's just not a lot of those people who do this sort of thing. So, you know, I'm still looking into it.
Tony, did you ever talk to any of the longer-term members of the church to know if anybody remembered who did it several years ago?
No, I wanted to get a hold of, I have the request here, and I have a number of the name of a person who made the request, and they should know, but they are relative newcomers to the congregation, so I've got to work my way back. Maybe I'll talk to Betty Gibson. She certainly is
That's what I was thinking,
been around for quite a while, and she
long-term
might
member.
have some idea. I'll give
Yes.
her a call tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a good idea then. Okay, fine. Thank you. And Tony, the superintendent said the other day that the regional agreement is now on the website, the draft of it. And apparently the state has tweaked it just a little bit, and it's back now. So I didn't look for it. I haven't had time to look for it, but supposedly that's it, the regional agreement.
It's on the
Pioneer
Valley
Heights.
Regional website.
Yeah, somewhere.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
take a look. Like I said, they knocked out a few of our things that we put in. I'd be interested to find out what the state did or did not do.
Yes, okay, all right. Andrea, where do we stand on the drainage out in the parking lot? Because that controls what happens on the flooring.
Yeah, the engineers they're sending me the report, so we have to make a decision. As soon as I can get to Tom, we have to talk about it, if they were gonna look at options, so. On some different possibilities, there's some current drainage there, do we try to tie to the state, to the street with the state, which we will take forever, or a retaining pond in the back, so we're debating the options, but we're gonna do something.
Oh, I hope it's something this
Oh, yeah.
summer.
We're gonna
Yes.
try our best to get it.
Okay, all right. right, that's good. And Dan, another item that was pending is codifying the zoning bylaws. That again was an appropriation 2017. Where do we stand on that?
We're still paying off some of that as far as doing that, and I've in contact them. They're talking back and forth a little bit. You talk about the codification.
Yeah, we talked about it, Dan and I, and decided, we were talking about doing a spring town meeting initially, but then with COVID, we decided to wait, since town meeting isn't going to be moved, we're aiming for it. We decided it's too much to put on the annual, that a special coming out after the annual makes more sense. Prior would have been great, but with COVID, we think
You have to have hearings
to
as
hold
far as
off.
doing that.
Yeah,
Because
there's
there
gotta
are
be some hearings.
Yeah, there's some changes, and a lot of it is just verbiage as far as doing that, bringing up the state code, but we are including some more bylaws in it, so. we
So
do it all
zoning
at
has to
once,
have hearings.
And I like to submit once to the Attorney General, which makes it a little bit easier. Not for me, because they're gonna have to go through probably hundreds of pages, but that's what we're doing right now as far as doing that. And it's, I still have money in that fund to be able to pay it off, and then it's an ongoing thing that I keep in my budget, about $1,500 per year. If there's any changes in the bylaws that they incorporate into the documents, you may never use it, or you may use it once a year or once every 3 or 4 years, but I have to have a placeholder for that. So I'll be adding that once we get the codification. And what it's going to be like a Bible, and there'll be maybe a half a dozen hard copies, but most of it will be put on the website and will be accessed on the website. There'll be some areas where only the town can look at it and have access to it. But what will happen is everything that's put on there will have the history of all bylaws, or the bylaws from that point on. So say 5 years from now, they change the bylaws, but they said, oh, what does it look like, 5 years past, they'll be able to refer back to that. So it's kind of a long and drawn process, but what's happened is COVID has just made it difficult to do hearings, which you really need to do to bring it up to
For
speed.
zoning, yeah.
For people to understand that we're changing, but we're not really changing a lot, so.
But there's a couple of new things proposed. The planning board wants to do new subdivision bylaw regs, and so that's a whole new change for that. Not that it affects most people, but it requires the planning board to do hearings. And
Yeah, and not only are the bylaws, but we're doing a general bylaws, which I kind of con the same people into doing while we're got them looking at this. So they're kind of doing more than we would have had to come back for more money if they didn't agree to do this. So we're looking good to get everything
I think
done.
it'd be very helpful to have the bylaws, because
So maybe a fall town meeting, when we've had a chance,
my job here, and
when
so,
people have been
I think
more vaccinated and safe, and people feel a little more.
okay. Now,
Yeah, we'll party at the next special town meeting in the fall.
There you go.
so Andrea, tomorrow you'll send us a new one of these then.
Yeah, I'll put in the new articles and get that all situated, and then I'll send you both documents.
Okay, all right. Anything else anybody wants to bring up that we need to do tonight?
I think we're good.
Okay,
Excellent. Make a motion, we adjourn.
all right. Is there a
Second.